Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Poke, poke. Is this thing on? We'll see in a moment. All right. Matthew, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me today. We have noticed that there are semi-recent, last fall, right?
Yeah, just the end of last year, November, December, yeah.
Yeah. Notable position changes in your church regarding gay marriage. So I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to hear from you from the inside. What has changed over what time frame? How has it changed? Tell me everything.
Okay, well, awesome. Great, yeah. Well, first, I'll say it's always a privilege being on your show, so thank you for having me here.
Mhm.
And just being on any show or any um, uh, opportunity to talk in the street epistemology community, because I feel like I've learned and gained so much from this community over the past couple of years. And I really mean that. I feel like my everything from the way that I've thought about atheists to my own positions and beliefs on things, and the confidence level of those beliefs, refining some of my thinking, and to developing, I feel like, friendships that have really
Mhm.
lasted. I just somewhat recently started doing a weekly show on an app called Stereo with
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
friend that I met in the street epistemology community. And so it's a street epistemology type show that
Mhm.
we're
Mhm.
doing. So that's always fun. And then the second thing I'll say is that, as you mentioned, so I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You can go to comeuntochrist.org to find out
Mhm.
more about that. But I don't speak for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm not an official representative, and I've said that before on shows that we've been on
Mhm.
um, before. You've probably heard me say things like that. I just want to be careful that anything that I say isn't taken as like the official word or
Good.
position of the church. But the other reason that I say that in this show particular, because this is obviously a political issue, and
Mhm.
so I just want to be even more careful. So I might say that several
Mhm.
times throughout the show, just to make sure people know I'm not an official representative of the church. I'm just as an average member of the church, sharing my opinions and my thoughts. But I did pull up official church statements
Mhm.
that I can quote from and read. So
Mhm.
anyway, those are the first couple things I wanted to say. And now I can jump right in. So your question
Sure.
was,
Do you want to share your screen with those statements? Does it help to
oh yeah, sure, yeah. Let
yeah,
me,
just to present and present whatever you're reading from?
yeah, I'm happy to do that. Um, uh, why? Okay, window. There we go. Okay, can you
There you
see
go.
that? Okay, it's a lot of text.
Yeah.
So, and let me here. Maybe I can make this a little bit bigger.
Yeah. If you make it wider and then less tall, it'll fill the window better. There you go.
Okay. So, yeah, so these are some of the official church statements. And I'm happy to send this out to anybody that's interested in it. But these
Okay.
are the first part of this goes to links. Most all of these go to links on the
I'm happy
church's.
to copy and paste that if you send it to me in the description after the link.
Yeah, I'll do that. So the a lot of these, if anybody wants to look them up, again, you'll put them in the description, but
Mhm.
you can go to news.churchofjesuschrist.org. The church has, just like any major organization, has like a public relations arm.
Mhm.
So the newsroom website of the church is where they release like official church statements
Mhm.
that are officially from the church, and that's what this is a collection from. So those are
Okay.
on the
These
news
are
site.
all from their official public
Yeah,
facing. Nice.
so press releases and uh, official statements and things like that. But yeah, so your question was, how have things changed? So Yeah. Do you want me to just dive right in? And
Yes, please.
okay, so trying to think of the best way to do this. Let's just go through
Mhm.
these church statements, so you can kind of see the difference here. What do you prefer? Do you want me to go to the most current statements and go backwards, or start at the more at the beginning and then go forward?
Let's do the latest one and then go back through a
Okay.
timeline.
So here, and I just linked to these here because I wanted to give this a little bit of context, but
Mhm.
so the Respect for Marriage Act, this
Mhm.
is actually me quoting from Bard. I did
Okay.
look this up with artificial intelligence, but I mean, you can look this up. So the Respect for Marriage Act was signed into law by President Biden on December 13th, 2022.
Mhm.
And the Respect for Marriage Act ensures that all marriages, regardless of the gender of the spouses, are recognized by the federal government.
Mhm.
So obviously, the Supreme Court in the United States, back in um, 2015,
Mhm.
uh, uh, ruled that gay marriage was legal, but the United States Congress had not actually passed a law legalizing gay marriage.
Okay.
Now, for all intents and purposes, gay marriage was legal in
Yes.
all of the United States from 2015 on because of the Supreme Court. But just like we saw with abortion
Mhm.
recently, right? Like, so the Supreme Court um,
Mhm.
for years had the precedence that abortion
Yeah, Roe
was
v. Wade. Mhm.
legal, right, because of Roe v. Wade. And now we've just seen the Supreme Court just recently
Mhm.
reverse the opinion on that. And so now we're left to the laws that Congress has passed. And I mean, we could go get into a whole discussion
Oh, yeah.
about, like, okay, what is the right way for laws to be passed in the United States, and how do the three branches of
Oh,
government
yeah,
work together?
totally. That's a whole other thing, and in
Yeah,
this case, mostly I'm interested in how the church's opinion about that has
right.
has changed. Yes.
Right. And so, but what the reason I set that context is because I think a lot of people didn't even really realize that this law was passed.
Mm.
And so they th so basically, if the Supreme Court was to reverse their opinion today on gay marriage,
Mhm.
there is a law that has been passed by the United States Congress that preserves and protects uh, gay marriage.
Yes,
That the Supreme Court, it doesn't matter if they reverse their opinion,
and this
because
is
there
at
is
the federal level.
now a
Yes.
law on the federal level in the United States.
Mhm.
So that's what these church statements right here are regarding. So now I'll just go ahead
Okay,
and read
go
some
for
of
it.
these. So and I'm just going to read pieces of each of the statements,
Mhm.
but here's the November 15, 2022. We are grateful for the continuing efforts of those who work to ensure the Respect for Marriage Act
Mhm.
uh, that includes appropriate religious freedom protections while respecting the law and
Mhm.
preserving the rights of our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. And then December 13th, 2022, that was the day that the law was signed
Mhm.
by President Biden. The church says, quote, "We extend a heartfelt
Mhm.
thank you and our congratulations to all who played a part in the passage of the amendment Respect for Marriage Act. Their efforts to protect
Mhm.
religious freedom as Congress sought to codify the Supreme Court's same-sex marriage decisions are both historic and commendable. The
Mhm.
amended Respect for Marriage Act specifically recognizes that diverse beliefs about the role of gender in marriage are held by reasonable and sincere people based on decent and honorable religious and philosophical premises." And it goes on. But so the church um, uh, came out in these two statements and said, "We commend, we respect, uphold,
Yes.
support the decision by the United States Congress to
Mhm.
codify um, same-sex marriage, to uh, make sure that this is protected." And part of the reason for that, as expressed in these church statements, is because it has balanced protection for religious freedom as well.
Cool.
So yeah, but now I can go back and you can kind of see
Yes.
how things have changed.
Yes.
But do you have any thoughts before I?
Well, when I learned about this, and I think I learned about this primarily through you, my opinion of the church went up several notches, and thank you. I'm actually very grateful for this.
Yeah, and I am too. I personally am very grateful for this, and I feel like, and we can get into my personal opinions after this, but I agree. I feel like this is a great step forward in helping people of very strong opinions on both sides of this issue come together in something that they can agree on, and to help support and protect each other's freedoms. So yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, I will go ahead and go backwards.
Yeah, let's just roll back to the. Are we going to roll backwards or roll back to the beginning and show the front?
Yeah, let's roll back to the beginning and go forward. I don't know if there's a best way to do this, but this will kind of show you like kind of how far the church has come. So this is June 30th, 2008. Now, what was happening at this time is Proposition 8 in California. So this was a bill in
was very
California.
active on the other side of that.
Yeah. And this was a bill that would say marriage should be between one man and one woman. And so this is what the church said at that time, the first presidency. This is also on the newsroom's website.
Yes.
Quote, "We ask that you do all you can to support the proposed constitutional amendment by donating your means and time to assure that marriage in California is legally defined as between a man and a woman. Our best efforts are required to preserve the sacred institution of marriage."
And you won.
Yeah. So we've gone from like a very I'm trying to think of the best ways to put this. A very stern, a very
zealous.
Zealous. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Zealotry. I define second order zealotry as expending effort to punish people for not doing things. First order zealotry is expending effort to change other people's behaviors.
Oh,
so
okay.
Definitely qualifies as first order zealotry and heroic behavior, as long as it's not hurting people.
Okay. So there you go. And yeah, so they're putting money into this. They're encouraging members to do everything that they can to support this. And then we see this contrast of just the end of last year, where the church has come out and said, "Hey, there's a new law that's passed, and we support this." So that's
so even in 2010, you see some shift away from 2008 position.
Yeah. So a couple, and it's I'm just taking pieces of this.
Sure. We're skipping across
out of here. There's a lot of context to each of these statements, but yeah. So then 2010, we start to see, this is the earliest that I could see. There might be even earlier instances of this, but I couldn't find any. That a church statement that came out that says, "While the church is strongly on the record as opposing same-sex marriage, it has openly supported other rights for gays and lesbians, such as protections in housing and employment." So so we start to see in 2010, from what I can see, the church saying, "Hey, we don't want to be so extreme that we don't recognize the basic needs of our friends and neighbors that we disagree with." So yeah, and I think that's wise. And then 2015, these next ones, maybe I'll just kind of sum up, but people can read them here. I'll make it a little bit bigger. So 2015, church had a news conference regarding laws in Utah, and the church
Mhm.
is headquartered in Utah, in Salt Lake
Mhm.
City, Utah, where they said, hey, we want to support not just housing, but
Mhm.
housing and employment and other basic protections of the
Mm.
LGBT
Nice.
community,
Mhm.
um, while ensuring religious freedom is not compromised.
Fine.
So we're starting to see that balance. And then we start to see later that year this bill being passed called Fairness for All. And this is something that the church really pushed for.
Mhm.
Um, and but it was June of that year as well that the United States Supreme Court
Mhm.
uh, ruled that same-sex marriage was legal. And so
Okay.
this is a statement right here that reaffirms the church's position that, hey, the church is still against same-sex marriage.
That's fine.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if politically against same-sex marriage is would be the correct way to put
Well,
that, but
theologically, I have no
doctrinally,
argument that it could
theologically,
be.
against
Yeah.
same-sex marriage, and reaffirming to the members of the church,
Mhm.
we are still supporting marriage between a man and a woman.
Mhm.
But then in 2019, we see this fairness of all, and I should have. Oh no, sorry, this one is related to the.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, no, this is the fairness for all in the United States Congress. I should have pulled up the ones in Utah. I thought I had the ones in Utah in here, but we see in this time period as well.
Mhm.
There's laws in Utah being passed for fairness for all that would protect religious freedom in Utah while also protecting the rights of LGBTQ um,
Mm.
the LGBTQ community in many
Mhm.
different ways as well, and trying to figure out how to strike that right balance. And then, so we see that in 2019 come to the United States
Mhm.
Congress, and then this act in 2022 that we read about. So that's kind of the journey in a nutshell. Each of these articles have
Mhm.
more context to it, but I think
Yes.
that's,
Well, it
yeah, I
shows
think that's kind
a
of it in a
very
nutshell.
distinct trend, and it shows a distinct trend at the very top of the public relations side of the church, and I'm very, very happy about that. To what degree do you reflect that in your own observation within your own local community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my position is that I okay that so I've mentioned stereo before. I
Mhm.
there's this app called Stereo where you can have
Mhm.
audio conversations with people, and there's a friend of mine on that app that lives in the United Kingdom that once said something to me like, "It's not my job to convince or pressure or persuade or try to like tell other people that I'm right and they're wrong. It's just my job to share what I believe and my experiences and let people come to their own conclusions."
Mhm.
And I feel like that's kind of my position on a lot of these things in general. I absolutely support people's rights, and especially minority people's rights when it comes to uh, like basic freedoms.
Mhm.
Um, so, like, I have my personal beliefs and opinions, but I don't want to tell other people how they should
Sure.
believe or what they should vote for. And so, my personal beliefs are that God intended for marriage to be between a man and a woman,
Mhm.
and that's how I live my life. I'm married and I have kids, and that's what I see as being affirmed by scriptures and other things that I feel like back that up.
Mhm.
But I also recognize that there are people who believe differently than me,
Mhm.
and I don't want to tell them what to believe. I don't want
Mhm.
to um, tell them how to vote. I don't want to try to uh, tell somebody to live their life differently. And so I recognize that gay marriage is legal and also um, like deeply held as sacred by millions of people.
Mhm.
And I stand up for and protect those legal rights of people who disagree with me personally. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think that's where I stand in a
Mhm.
nutshell.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Cool. Has your stance changed much in 15 years?
Yeah, I would say, well, let me, and it's interesting. As I was preparing for this show, I had a lot of reflection, not just on that, on my personal opinions and how things have changed, but also just kind of how, I view like the role of lawmaking and democracy and religious freedom and some of these various principles. And it's been really good for me to reflect on and think about all that. But one of those pieces is about how my opinions have changed and I think, um, if you were to ask me, I was in high school in
Mhm.
2008. If you were to ask me back in 2008, like between like 2007 and 2012, like I don't know, in that period, what is your position? What would you believe? I think uh, that time in my life, I think I would have said, just like I just said, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, that's been
Mhm.
ordained of God. But I think I also would have said, and that's what I'm going to vote for and um, uh, encourage and support and advocate for. And this whole idea of recent years of saying, hey, I'm not here to convince somebody what to believe. I'm just
Mhm.
here to share my opinions and let people come to their own conclusions. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have had that opinion then. I think I would have viewed my role at that time more as somebody that I should be trying to persuade people to believe
Yeah.
the way that I do.
Yeah.
So my personal beliefs and opinions about marriage haven't changed, but I think the way that I vote
Mhm.
and the way that I think about how democracy should work and the way that I think about um, uh, how to engage in a pluralistic society
Mhm.
with people of varying different degrees has definitely changed. So that's the part of my opinion that I think has changed since that time. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, how much of that seems like the kind of shift that people have when they do street epistemology.
Hmm. Hmm.
Not begging for compliments for my community, but I'm wondering how much of that fraction do you think is the street epistemology? How much of that is just your growth over the 15 years?
I think a huge portion of that is actually street epistemology. Yeah, having these conversations with tons of people who disagree with me on lots of different subjects.
Mhm.
Yeah, man. Okay, let me try to put this in a percentage. How much of that has come because of street epistemology? I would say that like 80 to 90% of that has probably been because of street epistemology and engaging in all the conversations that I've had.
Mhm.
I think that like maybe 10 to 20% of that has just been from my own reflection on democracy and reading about various opinions, including the church's opinions on
Mhm.
um, some of these things, but other people's opinions and other thoughts as well. Yeah, but no, I think a huge portion of it has been because of street epistemology. Yeah.
Yeah. Inside your LDS community, specifically talking about people within the LDS church,
Mhm.
if you were to think of like the 10 closest people that you have talked to about this, do you find they have shifted in that mean over that 15 years?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that there have been some major shifts politically
Mhm.
in the church, and there's been so I mean, there's so many different opinions on this topic that it's hard to say what's the average person's opinion, because I feel like that's actually really complicated on this topic, because
Mhm.
you've seen everything from people who were very upset about Proposition 8 that
Yes.
had family members that
They were
were
they
in
were
the
against it.
LGBT community, yeah, and they
Huh.
left the church
Mhm.
at that time, and other stances or statements that the church has made that had very strong opinions from the beginning and
Mhm.
decided to disassociate themselves from the church um, um, for various reasons over the years. And so, and I don't know what I have no idea what I think that's I'm pretty sure that's a minority of members of the church, but it's not a small percentage. I think
Mm.
it's a significant amount.
Significant fraction.
I have no idea what that percentage would be, but I think
Mhm.
that it would be significant. Um, and then you have the changing like politics in Utah. We and I keep mentioning Utah. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a global church with 17 million members. There are
Mhm.
more members of the church outside of Utah than there are in Utah. There are more members of the
Mhm.
church outside of the United States than there are in the United States.
Yeah.
But the reason I point to Utah is because Utah is a place where there is a majority of
Mhm.
the population who are members of the church,
Yeah.
and this is where church headquarters is. And so it's an interesting case study to pop out there. But you see this in other places in the Intermountain West, especially where there's a larger percentage of members of the church. But in Utah, we've seen this shift where um, we have Republicans like Mitt Romney
Mhm.
and Mike Lee, which are
Mm.
very different in their approach to these issues and other political issues, how they feel about Donald Trump and all sorts of
Mm.
things. And 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 you see this backlash against the Republican Party in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. It's still a largely Republican state, but in the last Senate election, it was very close, closer than it had been in
Mm.
decades between a Republican and the runner up, which was Evan McMullen. And
Okay.
so
Evan
it's
McMullen's an independent candidate, yes? Uh-huh.
he's an independent candidate. Um, and so but and so you have like this this minority but significant number of members of the church who I think have disassociated themselves with the church. You have a significant member of the church who are unsatisfied with the Republican Party and
Mm.
are and Utah has historically been a very red state. I'm not saying, I don't think I'm saying anything controversial here. Again, I'm not an official representative of the Church
Of
of
course.
Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I don't speak for the church, but this is in Pew Research, so I don't think I have any problem saying this. But when you
Mhm.
look at Pew Research over the past couple of decades, you see a strong correlation between membership in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the
Mhm.
Republican Party.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I think I'd have to look up the exact numbers, but there's a strong correlation there. But so in recent years, the last few years, you see this like backlash in Utah, and I think that's probably to some degree reflective of the church at large against the Republican Party in some
Mhm.
ways. But then you still have a good portion of membership of the church that are very strong and supportive of the Republican Party and conservative values that are in the membership of the church. And the reason that I bring that all out is because it's kind of hard to answer that
Mhm.
question, because you have like these different groups that
Right.
have different opinions
There's
on
these
things.
other currents going on within the
Y-
space,
Yeah,
and those affect who's willing to talk to who about what.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but I would say the average active participating member of the church, would you see as big of a shift in their values and opinions as you have seen in mine, as I just described? I would say there's probably a portion that have,
Mhm.
but there's a portion that haven't. And
Mhm.
so I would say maybe like half of people who are actively participating have stood pretty strong
Mhm.
to how they felt originally without much of a change, and maybe the other half have made changes to a certain degree,
Mhm.
um, but not in the same way that I have. Maybe I don't know. I think
Sure. Sure.
that's just a guess.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say that, on average, the ones that have moved, say, toward my position, have moved more than the ones who have moved away from my position?
Um, I I don't know. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I don't. Um,
That's I don't know is a really excellent answer. I appreciate that a lot.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not sure.
Cool, cool. Thank you. I have understood you, and um, what kind? So here's a hypothetical, so that we're in SE mode. What kind of data could you learn tomorrow? Something you don't think is true today that would. I want two actually examples. I want one that would that would lead you to think that the LDS Church in general is moving more in this trend, and one that would think you moving that's moving less in this trend.
Okay. Um, I mean, I mean, if I mean, like if the church came out and said, "Hey, we're okay with bishops performing
Mhm.
um, uh, gay
Okay.
marriage ceremonies," then that would
Okay.
definitely be a piece of
That would be
evidence
a huge additional
that
shift. Yeah.
that would shift, or something along those lines.
Mhm.
Um, Something in the opposite direction, I would say, if they decided to start advocating that the Supreme Court overturn their original
Mhm.
decision, or
Okay.
advocating for lawmakers to backtrack on what they just said at the end of last year.
Cool, cool. Yeah, those are very clear. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for this conversation. Uh, do you have a summary that you'd like to leave us with?
Um, yeah, sure. I don't, or and I don't know if you're trying to keep this to a certain time, but there's
No.
lots of. Okay, well, yeah, yeah.
If there's any of these questions that you'd like to address, call them up. I'll do it.
Oh, okay. Do we have? Oh, I should have had the comments open this whole time.
Mm.
I had the wrong tab open. Okay, let me see here. Or what? Yeah, I'll go ahead and address some of these, and then yeah, I do have
Yeah,
some
read
comments I'd
through
like
it.
to share at
See
the
if
end.
there's any of these you'd like to address.
Um, okay, if you don't believe in persuading people, then there's no point in talking about it at all. Do you mean that you believe in taking a non-coercive approach to persuasion? Yeah, that's a really great point, and that
Mhm.
yeah, an excellent point. I I let me I have always believed in taking a non-coercive approach
Mhm.
in talking to people. I believe that coercion is wrong, period. And I
Mm.
and I and I can't remember any time in my life where I believe that coercion is right. And I served as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where I went out, I knocked on people's doors, and I said, "Hey, I believe in the Book of Mormon. Here, let me share a message with you, right? And that's actively trying to persuade people. But if somebody shut their door in my face, I'm not going to try to like beat down their door or put my foot in their door to try to stop them from shutting the door and try to like barge my way in there, or trying to use some kind of manipulation or coercion to get people to listen to what I have to say. And so, yeah. But I think you have a really great point about persuasion. I think, yes, I do believe that. Okay, actually, this leads to one of the things that
Yes.
one of the things I wanted to say in closing. So I think this is a really great segue to this. But if none of us shared how we felt,
Mm-hmm.
what we believed, or what we thought on something, I don't think we would very efficiently come to truth
Mm.
or come to the best decision making.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So, like, let's talk about how science works.
Mm-hmm.
You have to publish a study and have people look at it and tear it apart, come up with counter arguments, and if it gets through the peer review process,
Mm-hmm.
then it's one study of many that leads to a theory that leads to scientific consensus over time. But that is a group of people sharing ideas and coming to a conclusion as a group on
Mm-hmm.
where they see that the evidence falls, and that wouldn't happen as efficiently if everyone wasn't sharing their piece of what they believed.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that sense of being persuasive, yes, I do believe in that. And I think the same thing works with a functioning democracy, or actually any group as well, is that you have to have people being willing to debate, being willing to discuss, being willing to share ideas, being willing to publish a article
Mm-hmm.
or share a post.
Yeah.
But but I think
I'm all in favor of being positively persuasive. You'll get all of my praise for that.
with thanks. Yeah, and I think how I felt back when I was a missionary,
Mm-hmm.
back uh, in high school at that time, is I felt like my job was above and beyond that. I thought that, well, I need to try to like convince somebody. I need to try to change their mind. I not just share my piece of the puzzle. I
Mm-hmm.
need to actually try to like fit the puzzle pieces together in their mind for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And maybe that's not the best way of putting that, because I don't think I could literally like get in somebody's mind, but I feel
Oh,
like,
you have.
yeah,
You and one other person together changed my mind on an important topic.
oh, awesome. What was
Yeah.
that?
I am now much more in favor of noble truths that I don't have high confidence in, but that are, in fact, helpful to believe in at least as approximations, and that believing a wrong thing that is still a good thing is not something to trifle with or fix lightly.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and that's actually there's a really good book called "Useful Delusions" by Shankar Devantam,
Okay.
where he talks about that. That I really like that book. He's the host of a podcast called Hidden Brain.
Mm.
But yeah, he and Bill Messler wrote a book on that topic. But that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Okay.
But and
Oh,
that
hold
would
on.
be a fun.
Michelle was asking, was she the second person? Oh, no, no. This was a much longer time ago. And the other person is an apologist from Texas, Daniel Ray.
Oh, is he your Christian friend that came to Utah at some point? That
Yes. Yes,
oh
he came
yeah,
to
okay,
Utah
cool.
and met with our Met with Lisa and the Utah people up there.
Oh, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, so yeah, I think um, my position has changed from instead of wanting to try to fix somebody else or change their mind, I
Mm-hmm.
just want to share what I
Mm-hmm.
believe,
Mm-hmm.
answer questions about it, just share my experiences, and then let people put puzzle pieces together however they see that they fit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, so I hope that that makes sense. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There is a piece that's like, well, yeah, I'm hoping that by sharing what I believe, that that will help to influence what somebody else thinks or how they feel. Like, yeah, you're right. I wouldn't be sharing it if I didn't think that it could be helpful to them. I feel like
Right.
we all have a duty. Like, it's like we all have these different
Sure.
puzzle pieces, and we all need to to share them to see how the bigger picture fits together. I don't think any one person or one group has all the answers, and I see that how that is how science and democracy works. Um, and so, uh, yeah, I hope that that makes sense. I hope that that answered your question. Oh,
Rochelle is asking Daniel Ray, who wrote the God Virus. Specifically, Daniel wrote the story of the cosmos.
oh,
Anyway, that's just in reference to who Daniel Ray is. And he's
that's awesome.
specifically an apologist.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is really cool. I'm gonna have to check out that book. Um, And Rochelle, I would love to see you on stereo sometime. That's great that you use that. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, it sounds like a shift made more to a libertarian approach. Yeah, I definitely think I have become more libertarian. Yeah, for sure. I don't classify myself as one particular like political spectrum or another. I consider myself I like to consider myself as independent. I don't want to put up parties' platforms above looking at the individual
Mhm.
issues on a case by case basis. But yeah, I mean, so I wouldn't classify myself as a libertarian, but I definitely have become much more libertarian. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Okay, we talked about the persuasion idea. I guess. Well, it sounds like this sparked a really great discussion on
Yeah.
persuasion, so I'm glad that I
It
said that.
did.
And maybe, and again, maybe persuasion wasn't the right word. Maybe convincing, or I don't know. There might be a better word than persuasion. So I'll keep thinking about that. Maybe I can
I'm
think
a
of
big fan of persuasion. A lot of people have a negative connotation on persuasion, like they have on manipulation. I'm really in favor of overt manipulation and not covert manipulation. And
Oh,
I think
okay.
all language is, in fact, an attempt to affect somebody else's behavior in its root. So, yes, I'm manipulating you right now.
Sure.
And
Okay.
hopefully you don't mind. Hopefully
Yeah.
you consent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
get. Well, if I didn't consent, I guess I'd leave.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. You know where the button is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. So no, I'm glad that you guys caught that out because I think that is a good point. I think persuasion was the wrong word to use there. So
Well,
yeah.
it's you're using it in common sense, so I don't think you're
Yeah.
wrong.
Okay.
I might use it in a slightly off common sense because I like to provoke a little bit with the words that I'm using. I like to use words with a slightly negative connotation to get people thinking about, "Oh, yeah, that is what he meant, but it sounded wrong at first." I like that mode.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, yeah, and that is interesting too, because I was having a conversation with another friend recently about different terms that we use that people have like faith is one of those when we did our first show, we talked a lot about faith and my definition of faith, but the definition of faith is like all over the place, and the common definition is definitely not the definition that I use. I think I'm pretty unique in having a much more solidified definition of faith than most people do.
Mhm.
But I understand what people mean when they say, I have faith, even though I may not agree that that's what I mean if I say I have faith, though.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
For me, I'm perfectly willing to admit that I have some kinds of faith. I don't usually use faith to describe my thing. I use the other terms that overlap. I believe, I have trust, I have confidence in, I have chosen to trust, I have, you know, all those kinds of things that describe it, and I just describe it one layer deeper and avoid the term with baggage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, and persuasion is one of those words that for some people, yeah, it does carry some baggage and yeah.
yeah, indeed.
Um, okay, is religion the only reason that you are against gay marriage? If you didn't believe that in God, would that change your position? Okay, so um, I uh, let me let me tell you how I would feel about this. Okay, my personal belief is
Mhm,
that God had intended marriage between man and
mhm,
woman. So if my faith, uh, we just talked about the word faith. If my beliefs in God and my religion were taken away from that, then that whole belief wouldn't make sense. I think that belief
mm,
itself would go
okay,
away because I wouldn't believe in God, right? So if I don't believe in God, then I don't believe that God intended for marriage to be between man and woman. So there would be no need to even hold that belief.
mhm,
Um, uh, do if is it the only reason that I believe that marriage between man and a woman is a good idea? Um, no.
okay,
It's the probably the main reason with the heaviest weight to it is my personal uh, religious and um, spiritual beliefs. But I think that there is a piece that of me that sees the research about marriage and how it affects children,
mhm,
um, how families affect society, the effects of a mother and a father in a household, um, and biological factors as well. Obviously procreation for thousands of years, and millions of years has been um, possible through male in the human family has been possible
mhm,
through male and female, and so there are pieces of that. But does that mean that I would be against gay marriage? No. So I think that there needs to be more research, and there is beginning to be research, and I think that they should continue this
mhm,
on gay marriage and how
mhm,
like I know um, lots of gay people
mhm.
that I think are there are gay couples that I feel like are probably better parents than my wife and I are.
Maybe I
And
know them. I'm kidding.
what?
Maybe I know them.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, maybe.
we're probably not.
And so I think the research that has been conducted up to this point
Mhm,
um, is limited because we haven't had the culture and societal changes
mhm,
um, at the scale that we've had up to this point, and so now we need to do more research and see and maybe uh, we'll learn that gay marriage has a more positive effect than traditional marriage through research that is done in the future.
mhm,
And so I think um, regardless of my belief of God or not,
mhm,
I believe that everybody should have the right to choose what they want and to do what they want. I don't want to stop them in whatever they choose. And I believe that um, parenting has way more to do with your personal um, attributes and characteristics and values than it does with your sexual orientation.
mhm,
But because of the research that is currently available over the decades, in addition with some of these other things, I think that plays a piece in how I feel about it. So yeah, I hope that answers
It
that
does.
question.
It does. Do you eat shrimp?
What?
Do you eat shrimp?
I do. I haven't
A
eaten.
vegan is asking, what do you think of Leviticus 20:13? I'm joking
Oh,
about
is
the
that
shrimp.
again?
It's approximately there. It's not actually there. It would be this one. If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination, they shall surely be put to death. Their blood is upon them. I think this is the biggest OT smackdown regarding gay marriage.
Yeah. Okay. I I believe that when it comes to, first, I believe that the Bible is the word of God as far as it is translated correctly. So that's the
Okay.
first thing I would say.
That would be
And
in
the
the
second thing,
standard version that I pulled up, just for reference. Go ahead.
yeah. And then the second thing, and when I say translated correctly, I also think what I mean by that is compiled correctly as well. I feel like there are some books in there that are more valuable than others, like the Songs of Solomon. I don't know, like, should that have ended up in the Bible? I'm not sure. And I know from a strict like evangelical perspective, I know that a lot of Christians would be like, what are you saying? The Bible is infallible. I do not believe that the Bible is infallible. I believe that the Bible is a, a a collection of inspired writings by prophets throughout time, and that the way that it's translated, the way that it was compiled, the way that it was cut up and put together, all affects how we read it. But then the second thing that I'll say is that I believe that the role of a prophet is to receive revelation and inspiration from God, and especially for that time. And so we see things
Okay.
in the Old Testament like, hey, don't eat pork, and like the law of circumcision. And then we see things in Jesus Christ's time, things in what Jesus said and what Peter and Paul taught, that are like, oh, okay, well, we're not going to be as strict to those things that prophets taught in the past for
Right.
these
So
reasons.
the in Acts, when Peter has a vision, that would be an example of a prophet updating something.
Right.
Okay.
And so I think that scripture, for various reasons, is not something I would consider as holding myself to today. And I also believe I believe that the Bible, and especially the Book of Mormon, clearly teach us that we can all gain a personal connection to God and receive our own inspiration and revelation as well. And that might be one of the most beautiful and powerful things about the Bible, is a teaching that we have the power of the Holy Spirit to guide us in our in our lives and how we live our life. So yeah, I hope that helps.
So I'd like to give you a little bit of homework for my description. Please make sure you give me a link where Gina can get a copy of the Book of Mormon, a link to that document that you compiled with the news reports,
Okay.
a link to your stereo, and all of the ways of which we want to pay attention to the Matthew. And
Okay, great.
anything else you want to add in there? The description is yours to just pack in with goodies.
Okay, I'm just making a note of that right now.
Yep.
Yeah,
And Rochelle says they have an app with an audio book version filled in. Cool.
Yeah.
So that might be the easiest way to not bother with the paper copy, although a paper copy might be really, some people really like the book with the book in their hand, and I do not want to discourage that at all.
Yeah. Yep. And either way works. Yep. So you can just search in the App Store for Book of Mormon app, or you can go to Come Unto Christ .org and request a free copy of the Book of Mormon, and missionaries will come
And
and
if
hand deliver one to you.
Rochelle's been talking in the chat, and she would like to talk with you. And if there's anything that I can do that helps make that happen, I'm happy to be in the background and produce and run knobs or be a host or whatever. I want to encourage that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. Kate, give me just a minute. My alarm's going off. You might hear
Go
that.
ahead.
I need to disable that.
Go ahead. So thank you. He'll check this on the replay. Thank you, Matthew, for coming and sharing with us the change that you have observed in the Latter-day Saints Church over the last 15 years. This has been very informative and enlightening for me, and I'm very, very happy to see how things work, and looking forward to more talks with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, if there are any other questions that I'm sure there's a lot of things that I didn't get to, feel free to send me a message. And Stereo is a good place to find me. Facebook, you can look up my name and send me a message on Facebook, or I'm on Discord as well in the Street Epistemology.
And I will happily relay anything if you can't find his contact information quickly.
Yeah. This has been so fun. It's been a good reflection. And again, I'll say, I've said this like 5 times probably, but I'm not an official representative of the church. So my opinions are my own, and I'm sure I probably quoted things somewhere a little bit out of context, not intentionally at all, or said some things that may have, so these are my opinions on the topic. You can go and read the information yourself on the church's website. And part of the reason again that I say that is just because people are really sensitive politically on
totally.
topics, so.
Let me also reflect. I am not a representative of the Latter-day Saints Church, so any opinions that I have expressed here are my own and should not be reflective on your church either. I know that's just too obvious because but it counts just as much.
Hey, you early in the early church leadership in the 1800s. I think like the kind of beard that you have was a style. So, hey.
I have Old Testament beard. Absolutely. And with that, if we both wave at the same time, the AI will cut us off. Thank you, Matthew.